Hello, thank you for joining me on Minding Your Life with Dr. Blessing. Today, I want to talk about a topic that is very, very important because it is a topic that touches each and every one of us. It is about grief. Grief is something that has been around for as long as life has been, because it is something that tends to follow the passing of a loved one. But also, grief is more than that. And I'm going to get more into, grief when it comes to other issues. But let's start with the one that we all know about. Is that deep sorrow, that distress that people tend to feel following the passing of someone that is either near and dear in their lives, or just somebody that they know, or when something happens and that affects them in a way that is very, very deeply. We have that grief that follows that. And in this day and age, grief has been something that a lot of us have dealt with because of, at this point, we have this pandemic that has been going on for several months, in fact, going to a year now. And there has been a lot of deaths. And for some people, it has been people that are very, very close to them, especially when they have no control over that. They cannot do anything about that. And with the pandemic, I know that grief became complicated for a lot of people too because of how much this has taken from a lot of people. And also, in terms of people passing away during this pandemic, there has been a lot of issues where people were not close or be near the person who is dying, and that has caused a lot more issues for people. So grief is something that affects people in a really deep way because it tends to tie to other emotions also that we have. And a lot of times this is something that we enter into following this kind of issues. And then sometimes when things that happen in our lives is tied to some kind of trauma, it also becomes um a lot of issues that comes with that. So I want to talk also about how grief is touching a lot of people's life today. So beyond the pandemic, because if we look at the pandemic alone, there are issues of loss in a lot of ways. So, like I said before, there are the issues of losing people in your life, and some people are losing multiple people at the same time in their lives. But also, there is the loss of jobs. There is the loss of just how people, their lifestyles and things that they normally do, the freedom that you have to do things that you have to do, not having the control over what is going on in your life, and not knowing when this is going to end or when you get back to what you have considered normal in your life in the past. So because of that, people have had so many different kinds of emotion that they are dealing with. But I've also have a lot of people who are dealing with issues of grief because is now causing deep sorrow, is causing some kind of distress beyond the anxiety, the even depression that we've been seeing with that. Again, a lot of this is also tied to the fact that people have no control over what is happening next in their lives. And when you have different kinds of losses that goes beyond what people are used to or what people can handle at one time, and it's just hitting you back and back and back, then it brings up a lot of issues for that person. And at this point also, a lot of times when people lose someone, we have a lot of resources around them, or at least we try to put a lot of resources around them, either as family members, as friends. We try to be there one way or the other to help them grieve, to help them go through that process. But the issue with the pandemic now is because of the distancing that we're doing, the not being able to be there for each other physically. You know how hugs are very, very important in each person's life. It has become problematic too. And also, a lot of people are going through this at the same time. So it makes it in some ways difficult to truly be there for someone who's going through that grief. So this tends to become more complicated. And for some people, they go through it in different kinds of ways. Even though grief can be a good thing because it's a way of processing what is going on, what has happened in your life, the losses you've had. When there is no solution to it, when there is no end to it, or at least you're not seeing an end to it, which a lot of times grief really may not have an end. It may change, it may grow in certain ways. But what's going on now being constant, and the loss might keep piling on, then this grief becomes very complicated for a lot of people. So it is very important to pay attention to that. And, there are so many ways, like I said before, people deal with that. And for some people, right away, I've had some people like shock right away. That's the first thing that they're feeling. Some people, especially if there's been other things that has happened in their lives in the past that they've been dealing with. I've had some people go numb right away. And people are dealing with depression, anxiety. People don't have language for what's going on with them at this point, or knowing, how to, proceed. For some people, I've had some people really even get to that place of hopelessness because, again, they don't have answers to what is going, even understanding to what is going on with them, let alone answers to what needs to happen next. And also, since we tend to see grief in terms of mainly people passing away, when you have other loss in your life, people have a hard time actually realizing that some of the things they're going through is now in that area of grieving, and that it's a process that they have to go through, or that they're going through, and then knowing how to deal with that. So at this point, we are seeing a lot of that with a lot of people at different parts of the world. I know that if you look at what's going on in the news, going on in different parts of the world, there's so many things going on. We have different parts of the world where there's a lot of civil unrest going on, where there are some parts of the country where people really want things to change, and there is more and more of things being done where they may not be heard, or at least they're not feeling heard by the people in authority. There are things going on in our churches that, and again, especially in churches where we feel like, when you're going through things, that's where you can turn to. Our churches are other places of worship that people have, religious institution. When things are going on there where people are left devastated, people are left um, having questions that are not being answered, or knowing how to deal with spiritual and emotional and sometimes physical distress that they're going through. Sometimes that also goes into that grieving issue that comes up with them. And again, like I said before, a lot of times when we are already going through that, our religious institutions, or sometimes where we go to our ministers, we go to our imams, and we go to our the head of our religious institution to help us deal with that. And when things are happening within our churches and our place of worship that we cannot deal with, then that becomes problematic also for a lot of people. So, and I know, at this point there's a lot of people that are going through that. When we have things going on within our families and we have no answers for that, or we don't know how to proceed in dealing with it, or there's a lot of loss that comes with the issues that are prevalent within our families, either they're chronic, or it happens very suddenly. Again, people go through that process of grief, and for many, they have a very hard time knowing how to deal with it. Now, some of you may be asking, how do I know if I'm going through grief? Again, it's some sense of sorrow, some sense of loss. And it has so many different things that are attached to that. And for so many different people, we have different ways of processing that. And that's why I said it's very important. If you can't recognize that within you, go seek help. Go see somebody that can help you explain and figure out what is going on with you and how best to deal with it. You know, grief is a process that, again, it's in some ways our system is letting us know something is going on, something is wrong, and going through that grieving process is not really such a bad thing. Now, how we do it, how much of it we do, how it affects our lives, how it affects our functioning, how it affects our brain, and how we are dealing with life, now that can become more problematic. For a lot of people, there is some growth that comes out of grieving. I know I've lost quite a few people in my life, over the years, and some of them, it has been a lot more for me to deal with than others. And I have some that, but for me, there's something about memories that really plays a big part in terms of how I deal with some of that. So to be able to think about certain things about that person in my life that is no longer here. And in fact, sometimes I, I feel like, okay, if that person was here, what would they say to me when I'm going through this? Or remembering certain things about that person can, as sad as it can be about that person not being here, but to also be able to think about that moment that we spent together, the times that they were in my life, really makes a big difference in keeping me going. And also in terms of dealing with, for some people dealing with job loss, I've had some people that said, as bad as it is right now that I don't have that job, but it's now giving me the opportunity to either really get into the career that I really want to get into, or go back to school, or do something else. This has put me at a place where I can now look to see what else can I do. So for some people, depending on the kind of loss that they are dealing with, it allows them to be able not only process what's going on in their lives, but then to see how else they can continue to proceed. But I think the main thing is to know that for everybody there are different ways that grief is happening. It's about sitting down and really paying attention to what is going on with you. And like I said before, seeing if this is, if you're going through just the normal process of grieving through whatever is happening or has happened, and getting to the other side. And again, it can be something that we can get to the other side in some ways, because it's something a lot of times we enter into, and then we get through it and get to the other side of it. And there might be certain things that will change in terms of how we deal with things in life, but a lot of times it's how we get there. And like I said, how is it that what is happening with you when you grieve, how is that affecting your life? How is that affecting your functioning? How is that affecting how you think about things, how you deal with things? That becomes very important. Again, pay attention in your life how grief is affecting you. Pay attention to the different things that are happening. Pay attention to the kind of loss that you're going through, and how you are dealing with that. I think one of the areas that I tend to see sometimes that can become very problematic is when I see numbness happen when people are grieving. And I've seen that quite a few times, when they are not able to go through that process, when they are not able to either go through it in a healthy way, or they get very numb about it. Because the truth is, there are still something there. There are still things that are there, and they will change things about that person. They can change how you think, they can change your worldview, they can change how you feel, and they can change how you act. And it may not be obvious to you, but it will affect different ways, different things and different ways of doing things in your life. So please do pay attention to those kinds of things. And I think a huge thing about grieving that is very important in terms of dealing with that is connection. I always talk about connection, two things: connection and intentionality. So intentionality in terms of really paying attention to what's going on with you, really paying attention to how the grief is affecting your life and what you do about that. Again, grieving is not a bad thing. It's the process itself, what we do with it, how it's affecting us, and all the other things I talked about, can become problematic. So pay attention to that and do something, to be able to go through that process in a healthier way, in a way that gets you to where you need to be, as you continue to live your life. And I think the second part of it, that is also very helpful, is connection. Connecting to something, to somebody, to your higher power, to your resources, to your environment, to people in your lives, connecting to something that helps you as you go through this. It's really really important. That's why when people are going through grieving, people in their lives, we tend to see the community, we tend to see people in their lives get together to help them through that, because there is something about that connection that is happening. And the truth is, a lot of us with different kind of losses that are going on, a lot of us can be in it together. A lot of people are really willing and able to go through this with you, because I know at this time, there might be a lot of people who are thinking, well, I'm not the only person going through this, so why reach out? I'm not the only person, that this is affecting this way, so I cannot connect. And I've seen a lot of people, especially with this pandemic, that has separated people, that they are going through a lot on their own without connecting to others. That is going to become problematic if it is not already in your life as time continues. So please, please be intentional about connecting to others, and with others. Be intentional about connecting to, like I say, your higher power, and be intentional about connecting to your memory, especially if it is really good memories of the person or the persons who have passed from your life, because there's something about that that keeps us really going. And I know for some people that can be problematic about that. I work a lot with people who are going through grief, and in fact I have some that I'm working with now that it has become so traumatic for them. But we're finding other connections, because the connection that they have to this person or to the death has been traumatic for them, that that's the only connection that they are constantly, dealing with, and it's causing more issues for them. So we are spending time opening up and really cultivating and bringing out in their lives all the other connections and all the other memories that are healthier for them, that are helping them process this, because that's what they have control over, not the dead. There's nothing we can do about that. And like I said, all the other things that are happening, all the other losses, it can be within the church in terms of what's happening. Connect with the people who are healthy for you, the people that can help you really process what's going on in a healthy way. Because a lot of times, like I said, there is that issue of spiritual, spirituality, spiritual well-being, physical well-being, and even emotional well-being that comes from certain losses that we feel when things are happening within the church. So please connect with the people that can help you truly deal with that in a way that is healthy for you. And for all the other kinds of losses, if there are ways to connect, then please do that. If, again, like I always say in my videos, when it gets to that place where you need extra help, where you need professional help, just like you go to all the other, health professionals, your doctors, your nurses, and other health professionals to help you with other health issues. Know that mental health issues are very important, and they need to be as important as other health issues that you take care of. And in fact, sometimes it needs to be priority, because when that part is not taken care of, it starts to affect every other part of your health. So definitely, when the need is there for you to go see a professional, do not hesitate to do that. There's a lot of us out there who are ready and willing to work with you to really process, the grief issues in a way that is good for you, in a way that is healthy for you. So I hope you got something out of this video. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like, and also send me questions, send me topics. I really love, being able to discuss this with you. And as time continues, like I say, I'm gonna bring out other professionals that can discuss some other topics that you're interested in. So I look forward to talking with you more. And be well, stay well, and take care of yourselves.